Hi, I'm Michael from GoRoadie, and today I'm joined with Bob Morton from Client-Centered Learning, Director of Training at LDC. Bob, why don't you get started by telling us a bit about yourself and your background and how you ended up on this journey?
Okay. Well, good morning, Michael. Good morning. Thank you for having me, as it were. Bob Morton from the northeast of England. Became a driving instructor. Went on a training license back end of 1988 and qualified 1989. In the days before mobile phones. Wow. Um, Joined LDC 2 years later as an instructor. Became team leader, trainer of trainers. Eventually head of the training department, and then got involved in other areas of the business. And I came back to becoming director of training a little while ago. I'm retiring this year. I was 65 in August, and handing over to the very capable Stuart Picard. And Client-Centered Learning is my company that's run all the way through all of that. But I'm starting to ramp up my efforts there because I'm not going to retire. I'll still be working as a consultant with LDC, but I'll be doing a lot of work under the Client-Centered Learning brand, which, as it happens, is now the modern thing, isn't it? Client-Centered Learning, but I've had Client-Centered Learning for years and years and years. I've always believed in this kind of training, if you like, empowering people. It's about driver behavior that we're trying to influence, and if we get people to come up with their own version of what they should do through a process of helping them examine what's good and any disadvantages about the plan. I think it contributes to road safety. We have no hard and fast facts, but I'm convinced that people who come through my hands with this process become better drivers, better trainers of trainers. And it's this empowerment end of things, and it excites me because I see it having an impact outside of the environment that we're working in. If they become empowered in this environment, some of that transfers to the rest of their life. And the classic one is with the first girl I was experimenting with this with, really on the videos that people see, Bobby Jo Turner, and she said to me on the way home from test, "I'm not as stupid as people think I am." So that's an interesting thing to say. What makes you say that? I said, "Well, people think that I'm not really going to learn much, then I'm a bit thick." And she said, "I've realised I've taught myself to do this." "Taught yourself to do it, have you?" She went, "Yeah." "That's what makes you say that." She said, "Well, every time I ask you something, you just say, 'Well, what do you think?'" So she said, "Yeah." So she said, "I've got a friend who's training to become a driving instructor. Um, and I've told him it's dead easy. You just don't answer people's questions."
I watched your talk, obviously, at the driving instructor show.
Yeah.
And you piece of advice you gave during that was instructors should be asking questions that they don't know the answers to. I just love that.
A chap asked a question, didn't he? He said, "I've got this pupil, and they keep making these mistakes, and they know they've made the mistakes, but they keep doing it. What should I do?" That's okay. So we need to find out why the mistake's happening. He said, "Yeah, but they know why it's happening." Well, do they though? They can tell you what they've got wrong, but it's not fixing it. Is that what you're saying to me? Yeah. And this is another valuable tool, this summarizing the recap. So you're telling me that when you ask them, they tell you that they should have gone, reverse signal, position, speed, gear, should have been second, clutch comes up, I need to steer, I need to look right, left, equal times, and then if it's clear, I can go. Yeah. So something's wrong here. Something's interfering with that process. What's interfering with the process? And of course his answer was, "I don't know." That's what you need to find out. So by asking them, what gear should you be in? How much steering should you use? Where should you look? That's not fixing the problem. We're dealing with symptoms, not the cause. And the cause is likely the fear. So, if we start the roundabout thing, we've got to look at a different kind of questioning. So we say stuff like, "No, I shouldn't have gone there, should you?" "Oh, no, I shouldn't." But if I ask something like, "How are you deciding whether to go or stop?" That's a very different question. They're now going to run through all the processes and a conversation starts. And I think that's one of the key things. I don't want somebody to tell me what I want to hear. I want a conversation about stuff. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What sense can you make of this? So the questions start to become stuff like, how are you deciding what speed to travel here? What factors are you taking into account?
Yeah.
Or if I say to somebody, do you think this is the right speed here? That's a loaded question, isn't it?
Yep.
So the answer is always going to be, well, no. But if I say, "Okay, so I notice here you're traveling at 34. Happy with that speed? Yeah. What are you basing that on? That's a very different conversation. And it allows for a process that opens people up. And what I get people to do when they're coming to coaching courses that I do, I'll say to them, I want you to choose a friend that you disagree with on Brexit. And I want you to start a conversation. And when they say something, instead of going, you're an idiot, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a fool, instead of that, just go, well, that's interesting. What makes you say that?
What books has helped you develop this mindset, and what would you recommend to read?
There's such a lot out there. I think the go-to one for me now, and the first time I read it, I was like, what? That makes no sense. Is Timothy Galway's stuff, The Inner Game of Tennis. When I first read it, I thought, what the hell's he on about?
Yep.
What's he on about? And then I got The Inner Game of Music, about a conscious mind going, you can't do this. You should be worried about this. Oh God, this is going to be hard. Oh my goodness, I'm terrified. What if I get this wrong? We fear judgment, we fear failure. If you can occupy that bit of your mind and allow your subconscious, your map of the world, to just process things, because you've done things that are similar, you'll just work it out. Your subconscious is incredible. It's like a supercomputer. The answer to everything lies in there. I also liked some of John Whitmore.
John Whitmore, okay.
Some of his stuff, but it didn't quite resonate the same. But I think The Inner Game of Tennis really was the one. And when I first read it, I didn't quite get it. Every time I go back to it now, I get something else from it. I mean, one of the other books that I did dip into was Carl Rogers with a C, Way of Being. And he was an educational psychologist from the 50s and 60s. There's some genius stuff in there, but it's all about really how clever people are. You know, we are wired this way. We have an insane level of curiosity. It's ridiculous. 10 times whatever's in any cat you've ever met. And I say that to people sometimes, and they say, well, that doesn't sound right to me. I say, okay, the last time you were in a restaurant and the waiter came with an asbestos glove and put the plate on the table and said, "Be careful, that's hot." What did you do?
Oh, I'll immediately touch it. I'll immediately touch that.
Yeah, the waiter's looking at you saying, "Well, I just told you it was hot." But it's your subconscious mind saying, "How hot is it? Is it hotter than the last one that I touched? Is it, how long can my fingers stay on it?" We do these ridiculous things, and it's, you see a sign that says wet paint, put your finger on it and you go, "Oh, it's wet. The sign said it was wet." Why do you not trust it? We have to know. And it's our subconscious mind really racing and thinking, well, I need to be able to process that information and store it somewhere in another synapse so that I can retrieve it in the future. So this is why we're driven to do it. So if we tap into that curiosity that's inbuilt in us, all sorts of things are possible. So
what would be your 3 top tips on how to get started with client-centered learning? Like, where would you, to any EDI, PDI, getting started with these techniques, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
3 pieces of advice. 1, keep it simple.
Okay.
2, be prepared to forgive yourself for the inevitable mistakes that you're going to make. And 3, and probably most importantly, keep a reflective log and learn from the process. So
part 3 is really stressful time for PDIs and it creates a lot of anxiety. Yes. What are the biggest mistakes you see in people going in for part 3s? This kind of links into what we've been talking about. The number 1 reason for failure of standards check is the 4th row down. Didn't adapt the lesson when appropriate to help the learner work towards their learning goals. Now, what that's about really is, it hasn't gone the way that you wanted it to. What are you going to do about it? And most of the time, we don't do enough about it. And it's because we're persisting with a plan, even when the plan has worked for 20 minutes, or we're not changing the plan when we clearly should. So it's dead simple. Honestly, it is so simple. You and the learner have to put together some meaningful goals and a plan to get to them. Yeah. You then execute the plan. Your job is to keep an eye on it. And then the box that's important there is the 3rd one down in risk management. Was the trainer aware of the surroundings and the pupil's actions? So a burst of activity where you're trying to execute that plan. You then review. Was any intervention timely and appropriate? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean just about
did you jump in when the dual brake when you needed to? Are you helping them to say, well, the plan's not working here. That's not working the way we thought, because you need to input as far. Now in coaching, you would want them to do all the work, but this is the DVSA. They're still safety based, so you must be able to input it. And it says then followed it, was sufficient feedback given to help the pupil understand any safety critical incidents. Now when ADIs look at that, I think a lot of the time they get lost. So it's as simple as this. You put a plan together, you execute the plan, you pull over for a review. The simple question is the plan working? If the answer is yes, woohoo, big pat on the back for you all. We either now need to sign that off because we're done with it, or we need more of a challenge or less help. So we're moving the lesson on. So the next burst of activity, if it is not different to the burst of activity you've just had, you're failing in your duty as a professional driver trainer. So if we ask the question, is the plan working? And the answer is no, right? We're either binning it because it's too much for us today, or we want more help, or less of a challenge. But again, the next 5 to 10 minutes is different. Yeah, you're moving the lesson on and you're adapting the lesson where appropriate. We now also have to ask ourselves, well, did anything else happen whilst we were doing that little burst of activity? And this is where route and lesson planning is vital. Short, repetitive route. Oh, I did have to tell you about that cyclist, didn't I? Or there was that pedestrian who was going to step out. What sense can we make of that? Do we need to add that to the plan? Or are we going to replace the plan because that's more safety critical? So again, the lesson is being adapted. And the final thing, are you doing what you should see? Are you seeing it, saying it, sussing it, and sorting it? So that's our job. And I think if we look at the part 3, not as a test of your instructional ability, but it's a test of how you differentiate yourself from school of mom and dad. Are you worthy of being paid for what you've just done? And if you're executing that simple, put a plan together, review the plan, put a new plan together, bang, bang, bang. What do I need to do now? It's all about that. It works. It's so simple. And I've got a track record where I can demonstrate through hundreds and hundreds of tests. Because in my role as director of training at LDC, I've seen a lot of test forms. And I know that if we focus on that process, it gets us success. It's easy. It's not hard. Don't make it too complicated. But if we're thinking that way, we don't have to have mega complicated plans, and we don't have to have plan A, B, C, D, E. We can actually make plans up on the hoof.
What I've always felt is if you're an LDC trainer, they stay with LDC longer.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen anyway. Am I right in saying that? And if I am right, why is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, feel free to use this little next.
Okay, sure.
There's, franchising is something that's in the news at the moment, is it not? And all over social media.
And not
as with every story.
Sorry.
As with every story, there's two sides. Now, funny enough, I'm running a session on the driving instructor surgery, and I've titled it Franchises, the work of Satan or your friend in the business. Now, there's a franchise for everybody. If you're brand spanking new, the ink is still wet on your badge, you've got no idea about marketing or how to run a driving school business, then franchises the likes of AA and BSM are fantastic.
Yes.
But they've started to build in different layers and different levels of franchise that people can have. So they're trying to adapt, because traditionally the big schools have had a big churn of instructors.
Yes.
People would stay a year and then go on their own. And that's fine, and they're set up to take that. At LDC, we looked at that. Well, we based ourselves in 1991 when we first started. How old am I? Of those models, but we realized we were turning over a lot of instructors. So we knew we didn't want that to happen. If we wanted the school to really grow, we had to get people to stay. Now, you can't nail them in place. So we realized that we're going to have to make people want to stay. So we started talking to people that had left and said, well, what have you got now you didn't have then? And they wanted their own name on the car. They wanted their own telephone number. They wanted to choose what kind of car they had. They wanted to control their own diary. This is a big ask. So we worked about building just that. And also, they didn't want to pay this big franchise fee each week if they were generating their own work. So we've devised the pupil referral system. So you pay a basic franchise fee, and that gets you the tools to do the job, and all the the shared stuff, all that kind of thing. If you needed pupils, we would pass them to you, but you paid a finder's fee. If you generated your own work, it didn't cost anything. So the longer you're with LDC, the less it costs you. But there's also all sorts of other things, the CPD or the Facebook groups type stuff that we've got. So we see it very much as the learner drivers are our instructors' customer, but the instructors are our customer.
Yeah.
If we all keep our customers happy, then we'll do well. And we've got instructors. I've been with LDC for 30 years. We have people that have been here 20, 25 years. It's because we see it as, you don't work for us, we work for you. And because we keep it real that way, we've been successful, we think. Yeah. And people do feel a connection to us. So, it's I was going to say I'm sad about leaving LDC. I'm not leaving, but I'm 65, so it's time to step down.
Is there enough awareness about CPD in the industry?
I think there's enough awareness.
Okay.
There's not enough motivation to do it. People don't need to. We saw a huge upsurge in the levels of CPD being undertaken when the test changed. That's what drives people to. I think when we do CPD, it's the same 5% at the top of the industry that are doing it all the time. But I play under some great conductors. And that's what the great guys always come in and just say, okay, gentlemen and ladies, this evening, just be better. Just make it better. So, if I'm talking to people about that, say, where do you go on holiday? Last time you went on holiday, where do you go? How long do you go for? What would your dream holiday be? And it's always they want to go and swim off the reefs in Indonesia. They want to visit family in Australia, New Zealand, Canada. How much would that cost you? Oh, it'll be about £2,000. Okay. So if I could get you another £2,000, would you be happy? Oh, yeah. You need your lesson price up by £1. How are you going to do that? You've got to offer something that adds value. So it's easy. Keep me in the lifestyle I've become accustomed to. Come buy some CPD from me. client-centeredlearning.co.uk.
I'll definitely get all that.
Feel free to cut that out.
A lot of instructors are a little anxious about going back to work and managing their workload. That's the part they're quite anxious about. Is there anything in your course, or do you have any advice about how to manage that workload going back after coronavirus?
Well, I think we've got a little bit of time now. Earliest possible date is April the 12th. The advice I would give people, and I have given this advice to people, is to, okay, sit down there with a piece of paper and a pen and work out what you like about the job, what you don't like about the job, and start formulating a plan about how you're going to work differently when you go back. What are you going to change? Is it the number of hours you work a day? Is it the number of lessons you put in a day? Is it that you don't want to work weekends? Start thinking about how much money you want to earn from the job. What do you want the job to give you? Once you've got that worked out, then look at your working practices from before and ask yourself, do I need to change that? And if the answer is yes, change it to what? What is the outcome I want? And then start putting plans in place to do that. Once you've got that formulated, then start making contact now with your pupils and assume you're going back on the week of the 12th. But let them know that if it doesn't get that, then we'll go a week later, but it'll be the same slot. If you need to change that slot, that's by negotiation. You've got control over what's happening there. Don't fall victim to it. Oh, I've got all these pupils. We say this, I hate it when the new college year starts. Really, why is that? Well, the timetables are all over the place. And they say, well, no, because we say, well, when do you want your lesson? You don't ask the question, when do you want your lesson? You say, I've got 1 o'clock Monday, 3 o'clock Wednesday, 2 o'clock Friday. Choose. I can't do those. I'm in full-time education. Okay. Can you bring your timetable? Let me see it. So rather than me chop and change my diary 20 times because they can't be bothered, I'm in control of my diary. It's my diary. It's not your diary. It's my diary. And I don't show them it and say, when you want your lesson, you're going to have. So start thinking about how are you going to change your working practices. If you don't feel that you need any change, bingo, well done you, everything's working well for you. But start thinking about it. If you could change anything about your working practices before, what would it be? Now is a unique opportunity to actually do that. Yeah. And to take control and to stop working at 11 o'clock at night or whatever it is. We're going to enter a time of plenty. There's going to be lots of work out there. Yes. Don't get lazy, because it's an easy time to get lazy when there's tons of work and you don't quite put the effort in. You start messing people about and stuff. So really think about it. Because we've got this boom coming, it'll be followed by a dip. make sure you're going to survive the dip. So plan for the next dip, not the boom that's coming.
Great.
And start doing things that differentiate you from everybody else so that you will be less hit by a recession when it comes.
We're in March 2021. What's your biggest piece of advice for driving instructors?
The ADIs and PDIs. I think I'd probably separate those.
Yep.
A minute. For PDIs first, stop worrying. It's not going to be as bad as you think it is. There's lots of issues. Oh, what if my 2 years runs out? What if I went this for the trainer license? What if I currently train again? Start worrying about the things you can control and stop worrying about the things you can't. Take care of your mental health. And there's a lot of talk about it, but it is so important. You can paint yourself into a corner and drive yourself insane as a PDI because you feel like you've got no control. And you're right, over a lot of things you haven't. But focus on the things you can control. For ADIs, plan for a different future. If you want it, have a look at it and think, well, what else do I want? Where is your dream holiday? How many weeks holiday would you like to have? You had 4 weeks last year. Would you like to have 8 next year? How are you going to manage it? Start looking at your working processes. Start thinking about, is there some meaningful CPD I could do? How can I add value to what I'm doing? I mean, I offer all sorts of stuff like this. I've got a standard, it's shameless plug coming in. I've got a standard thing that I've just launched, which is a subscription service, which is $19.99. And it's all about establishing where you are, where you want to be, putting resource and training in place to get you there. And we do it through online stuff and regular Zoom meetings. So right. That's a new venture, which I'm really enjoying. It's opening people up. But I think that would be it. As a PDI, try not to worry too much. As an ADI, start thinking about what would you like to do different and why? What do you want to get out of this? And then start looking for ways to do that.
What's your course called?
It's client-centeredlearning.co.uk. If you want to see what's available, just /store. I'm doing stuff on, it's coaching 101, I label it. I've got standards check stuff on there, conquering anxiety and stress, which is a big thing. Mental preparation for these tests is key. That's more important than anything else. There's another piece of advice for PDIs. Don't cram information before the test. Get your head right. You've already done the cramming. Get your head right. Get the right level of food. Get the right level of hydration. So I do stuff on coaching, on conquering anxiety and stress, on part 3, standards check, that kind of stuff. But the subscription service covers all of it. That can take, doesn't matter whether you're a PDI right at the start of your journey or an experienced ADI that wants to become an audit trainer. It's the same package for everybody. It's the same processes. What do you want? How are we going to go about getting it? And
that includes time with yourself, is that right?
Yeah. I run the Zoom sessions on a Friday.
And you do that every Friday for so if you pay $19.99, you get yourself on a Zoom call every Friday.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now at the minute, I'm just doing the one where everybody comes together, and I'm finding it really useful mixing PDIs and really experienced ADIs because I'm having them all coach each other. But yeah, so it's it is a sort of one size fits all, because if we're helping people to learn, the process is the same. We learn when we make a connection between the new information and what we already hold inside. That's where learning happens. It doesn't happen through instruction. But I think the key thing to remember is that both you and your student can do the teaching, but only one of you can do the learning. And that's the learner. So we have to gear it around them. So it's early days.
Thank you very much, Bob. That was great. I genuinely think you should check out the course, because have it $19.99 a month for a coach, someone to talk to, and having that available for you. I think that's definitely worth the money, and including all the materials as well. So I think ADIs should definitely check that out.
I think so too, but I would say that, wouldn't I?
So thank you for your time, and I'll hopefully speak to you really soon. Thanks, Bob.
Excellent. Cheers. Thanks so much.